The corona pandemic affects us all. For design students, this means no physical show this year. This means no industry scouts looking at their work. And this means no museum curators looking at their talents. At the Dutch Design Week, we decided to do something about that and give them the spotlight anyway. We invited the 9 Dutch design schools to curate an exhibition around the central theme of the new intimacy, each with their own individual part. And each of those parts showed the unique signature of each school, and together they compose the unique Dutch landscape of design education.
So as a school, we are very experimental, we're very open in definitions, and we're also very keen on having a very close working relationship with the student. Things are bottom up and very responsive from this institution as well. So I think this kind of intimacy that we are having in the institution is very special.
My graduation project was mostly as a reaction on the heteronormative norm that I experience every day in my life. I see that queerness is still seen as a spectacle and it's still not part of the norm. And with my project I demand that queerness is part of the normative discussion when we talk about intimacy. And I see the new intimacy as something that's intersectional, trans, queer, non-binary. And that's the biggest reason how my project came along. I was always interested in the topic of intimacy, and that started when I saw the movie Call Me By Your Name. That was the first big movie that the mainstream media showed me where there was a queer relationship, where it was an in-depth, multi-layered relationship. I was 22 when I saw this movie, and that was the first time that I really saw an intimate relationship that I could identify myself with. And I was kind of shocked that this movie had such a big impact to me, and yeah, that was mostly the start of this interest in queerness and intimacy, and I wanted to develop and see what my voice could be in this topic of intimacy. I mostly worked with lens-based media for my research, consisting of photography and moving images. I explored ways to capture my models and during the times of COVID. And yeah, it forced me to explore a new world of what intimacy could be. In my case, I experimented with having Skype photo shoots, exploring what the power relationship between the model and the maker could be in times of COVID-19. So I think in those weird times we still have to reinvent the topic of intimacy in any case.
My work in the past 6 months has been working closely with the students, first trying to help them to transform their work from initially a physical exhibition to a online exhibition. And how do we actually think of the digital space as a different space other than a secondary space that complement the physical one?
My graduation work is titled Goods, Gods and Goddesses. It's a speculative exploration into how gender narratives exist in space, how they get coded into space. And it's situated in this market called Begum Bazaar, which is a small market in the city of Hyderabad. That's where I come from. The project started with a lot of interviews, a lot of field work from this market, where I realized over a series of walks that the market had laid out these gender narratives. For instance, there would be stores related to utensils, kitchen utensils, then there's beauty and wedding stores, then there is toy stores. All this within a distance of about a kilometer, which would probably take you 10 minutes to walk from one end of the market to the other. Now, if you think of these stores, they were kind of laying out these gender narratives, and I could draw parallels between these stores and the routines of women that I had seen in my life. So, and then I started looking into the aspects of gender and literature around gender, and it came about that gender is a performance, right? And what this market did is it facilitated that performance to happen. It was orchestrating that performance. It was an investigation, also it was a means to understand this whole aspect of space and gender and social practices. given this crisis that we were all facing, I think it was an imposition, but it made me think of new ways and means of working. And there were a lot of performances that happened on the screen, and the screen kind of became an important medium. So that's how I think of new intimacy. I mean, I was able to work with people back in India, and if this wasn't the case, then I probably would have worked differently. But I think the time has sort of left an imprint on my work in a very significant manner.
I'm involved in this project as one of the curators. Well, in fact, we are all curators. We're trying to create what we would have made in Eindhoven, but I think it's even better now in this fantastic 10,000 square meter hall. The event is called Try Out. Everybody is curator. Everybody is collecting curiosities. Altogether, it's a collection of collections, what we are trying to establish. Not only of things, but also of objects, of ideas, of experiences. Try Out is that we recognize and observe very carefully the things who are surrounding us. And I think that's very important for designers to develop, to observe what things are, what they mean, what kind of remembrance they have. And well, if you love them a bit more, then maybe you're also a bit more in love with your environment and the world. And in a way, that's what intimacy is. We also explain Try Out as a free market, vrijmarkt. It's typical Dutch. It's one big display of the background of the backyard of all the people in the Netherlands. It's one time in a year during King's Day. In a way, it's very intimate that you see all those things, all the stuffs people are putting outdoors on a blanket, and that you see the richness of all the objects next to each other.
I kind of like to be surprised by what I get and see how it fits into the social around me, how it fits with what I am doing at the moment, what I'm interested in, and trying to find all those little dots. What is that common denominator between everything? And I like to think of myself as that kind of common denominator of bringing all of those together and showing work and showcasing what is out there. My role is a documenter. We are combining and cataloguing everything that's been here today to show, almost on our side, we're taking it from a side of functionality and how it changes. So we are also kind of finding those loops and those holes, as well as working alongside with the tryout. But in the end, we'll have this beautiful catalogue to show all of the different interdisciplinary objects. I think within what Tryout is and within what I do is quite similar. It's very interdisciplinary. So you're working with a lot of people, you're trying out new methods, you're really expressing yourself within the realms of boundaries that you have almost set for yourself, but you're breaking them also. So they tie in very, very nicely. It's all about like helping each other out, especially in a pandemic like this. And obviously it's awful what is happening, but we as humans need to evolve regardless in the way that we live, in the way that we treat each other, and the way that we communicate, most importantly. A lot is lost through text, a lot is lost through, say, WhatsApp. So this human-to-human contact is really being lost. But we are, again, solution finders as designers. So it just brings on more things to think about, how you would adapt the way that you work, how the way that you present yourself and your work that can be reachable through as many mediums as possible, whether that be online or in person. I think you just need to navigate your way and stick with your gut and your instinct.
Within this project, I was asked to create a catalog of everything that's happening within Minerva. We're a school with so many diversity and so many different disciplines collaborating, and this book is really the end product of all that effort and motivation and creativity that's going on within our school. The new intimacy is not anymore as much about really having contact physically, because that right now is not possible. But it's about connecting emotionally and through our work and our passions, and finding ways to connect in ways we didn't do before the corona crisis. So this crisis really makes us rethink intimacy. The COVID-19 crisis affects every designer, because we are people that rarely work by ourselves. We thrive on collaboration, on working together, and it is maybe a bit harder now to collaborate, but it also is a new opportunity, because designers think of solutions to problems. And of course, this crisis creates problems. The designer is actually more a problem solver than maybe somebody who makes products. And these skills of problem solving can be applied in every aspect of life. And that's, I think, for me, where this school has taken me. This new view of design and how broad it is.
We're here in the Markthal in Rotterdam, in front of a presentation of our third-year students, where we work together with the Voedselbank. We approached the Voedselbank, I think, somewhere in the spring. So we didn't know that the theme of this design week was the new intimacy. I think it's related to this exhibition because Voedselbank food is already a very intimate theme. Eating can be very intimate in various ways. A lot of other topics around it, like shame. If you have to go to the Voedselbank, you don't really talk about it with people. So it's a very intimate topic. And I think it's an interesting partner also, because the students can work in different ways on their projects for Voedselbank. They can approach it from a commercial way, from a social way, for autonomous way. So we are happy that we work with the Voedselbank, also because it's an organization where they only work volunteers. And they are very busy running the whole place, and our students can investigate new manners and ways to let design help the Voedselbank in many ways.
I'm not that kind of social product designer. I try to make something more autonomous out of this project. It's very interesting to dive in this world and see how the Voedselbank is working and how much of an impact it has on people. I saw that a lot of people work with their hands and that there are a lot of people involved with the Voedselbank. So that was why I came up with the moving hands, the helpende handjes. It's an installation where you see hands, and the hands are symbolic for the many people who are working in the Voedselbank. They are moving. When you're walking by, you get attention of this installation. When you donate, the hands will stop, and there will be an audio about a short story from one of the people who are involved with the Voedselbank. And after your donation, the hands will move again.
The impact of COVID is huge in Willem de Koning. You are used to work with your classmates, communicate a lot with your classmates, do peer reviewing. It's a sort of learning community in the class, and now you're at home at your own computer, sometimes via WhatsApp or telephone, in contact with some other students, but it's not the same as being in a class at the academy. So that's huge. But also an exhibition at the Design Week wasn't possible this year because of COVID, so this is our alternative. It's mainly a sort of standalone presentation in the Markthal, where people can scan QR codes and go to the projects on the websites of the students. So we really wanted to connect the offline and the online communication to interact with the audience.
So I did social projects before, but also autonomous and also some commercial, so it's not that I'm focused on one particular point yet. The social part of this project is really inspiring because there are like so many sites within the organization that you can use and that you can get inspired on, like the people that go to the Voedselbank, but also the food and the process of the where the food comes from and where it goes. Donating food to Voedselbank is not really clear for most people, Most people don't know what they can donate, what they can't, and where to go. So I decided to build my concept around this and design a tool that is called the Doneerhulp, which is translated the donating aid. And it's actually quite simple. It's a bag that tells you what you can donate and what you can't. And you scan the QR code that's on the bag, and it tells you where the nearest donating point is. So this actually just makes donating more accessible.
The students will work on this project till December. So what they present here is a test ground actually. They present their projects and the concepts so far, and they ask for the audience to help them developing it further. So they ask for opinions, they have an experiment where you can be part of it. So they really want to interact with the public, with the audience, offline here in the Markthal and online at the website foodforall.nu.
We are currently in the vertical building, which is the home of the Department of the Built Environment. Behind me, we have the installation that was created by the Curatorial Research Collective. The starting point for the project was the idea of new intimacy. The whole point of it was to try to understand how in architecture the issues of intimacy are dealt with, particularly in architectural history. So what you see behind us is a reinterpretation of Aldo van Eyck's Moederhaus and the notions of intimacy that he tried to establish through the creation of space. So the original building, which was completed in 1980, had a very specific program. It was a shelter for battered women, where women and their children could take refuge and take some distance, particularly from their partners who were most likely abusive. While there was a certain need for sheltering these women from the conditions that they had experienced, the building was very open. And there was this idea that in order to, let's say, move through the difficult period that these women had gone through, they needed to also be open to the world. So that the idea of intimacy was actually very much related to the idea of openness to each other and to the city around it. What you see are these sort of floating planes in space, more precisely floating planes of color in space, which alludes directly to the original building. When you approach this installation, you were supposed to recognize them as unity, but at the same time as something that creates transparency and provides different conditions for intimacy as you choose to move through the building. The structure is there to facilitate human behavior, not to condition or shape it. You approach it as this sort of a combination or grouping of planes of color in space. And as you approach it, you start to realize that sometimes they are interconnected and sometimes they are not connected at all. As you move through the inside, you start to realize that the shaping of the space that is created by these frames provide different conditions for intimacy. Architecture is not to shape human experience, but is to facilitate human experience in all its diversity. And in this case, you can approach the installation, you can enter the installation, walk around the space, but it was also supposed to be accompanied by one text that we've put together, the text that alluded to the kind of experiences that one could expect in terms of establishing new types of intimacy through architecture. But also to the poetic origins of not only the original building, but the intentions of Aldo and Hanni van Eyck when they designed it and built it. So the infrastructure is not the same. If you know the original building, you would start to recognize certain components, architectural details that define and characterize the original building. But what you see in this installation is a reinterpretation of those components in a way that emphasize the notions of intimacy. Academic knowledge is knowledge. And knowledge is to be distributed and disseminated to everyone. And in fact, architectural installations and architectural exhibitions serve precisely that purpose of bridging this divide between academia and society at large.
I produced this exhibition, now virtually. This exhibition is called The New Intimacy: Body, Objects and Spaces. And it shows the work of the alumni of Artes, product design and interior architecture, as well as the work of our professorships related to the intimate relationship between bodies, objects and spaces. We've curated specifically for this exhibition, so we searched for work of alumni that really suited the new intimacy, and in some projects that was more visible than in others. For example, the work of Eva Vis that we're showing here today, that really well questions the relation we have with each other and how to connect with physical distance.
In my project, Rethinking Closeness, I'm searching for new ways for people to feel close during the lockdown and during COVID-19. Because I noticed a lot of people feeling lonely, wanting to be touched or needing a hug. Now I almost feel weird when I touch someone because I'm not used to it anymore. During the lockdown, when I thought about the border of the home, I started to create a flexible shielding. Other than the shields you see in the supermarket, they only create a distance. The shields I designed become a new place. They are flexible and you're able to touch each other. Due to the thickness of the material, you can also sit in them.
Context is always really important for a designer, and that's something that we really search for here in Artes. I think you design not for yourself, but for the world, and therefore always looking for new futures and new circumstances and reacting on those circumstances.
My graduation project was the anti-chair movement. And the anti-chair movement is a collection of 6 danceable chairs. So these are chairs that you can dance with. And it was a collaboration with Hanneke Klaver, my studio partner. I think it's really important to look not only at how the object functions, but also look at the way you treat the object and how the object influences how you feel. And it can be about comfort, it can be about finding a new way of attachment with objects. I think the project can now be looked at in a different way because the chair is a kind of a partner and you always sit in your chair. So it's really an intimate relationship. The chair is surrounding you. And with the crisis, people are more at home in their own environment and we cannot go out that much. So it's really important to look at what the objects do with us and how the objects change the way we behave or feel. Objects have a really important influence.